Hello people, this is Sandy from Talk of Thailand, and I'm making this video today, which is Friday the 16th of April, because we know that there's a very big problem here in Thailand with the COVID pandemic, and it's getting a bit out of hand, and it's going to get worse over the next few days when people start coming back from the Songkran break and they come back to their jobs or their homes back down this way or in Bangkok, etc. There's going to be a lot of problems associated with this last week's Songkran Thai New Year holiday. Now, one of the implementations that I'm sure we're going to see at some stage or other here in Pattaya is a total lockdown of the facilities here. It's already started and it's going to get worse, and we've all got to be prepared for it. We know that this time the problem is much more severe, and we're in a very contagious environment now. You see the fear in people's faces. You go out to shopping, etc. You go wherever there's public, you can see people trying to avoid each other. The wearing of masks has been doing. 99% people are wearing them properly, etc. Still the odd fool that doesn't wear it properly or ignores to wear it at all, but it's coming, and everybody knows that the possibility of them contracting COVID now is much higher than it's ever been before. So, bearing in mind that there's likely to be this lockdown very soon, it's time to start thinking how I'm going to prepare for that and what precautions I'm going to take, and what measures need to be put in place to handle an extended lockdown at home. If you're interested in what I'm going to do and how I'm going to tackle that, then please keep watching, and I'll let you know very shortly. Okay, so let's start the plan now. Well, when you're preparing for a lockdown, when you know a lockdown is only hours away, minimum, and maybe a day or two maximum, how do you go about preparing for it, and what do you do? Well, I think the first thing really to decide how you're going to handle this is to look what's happened at the previous two waves of COVID that have swept through the city. The first one, we saw the most severe lockdown, and the second one, we weren't allowed to call it a lockdown. It was more of a control aspect to make us as safe as possible. So we need to look at them to see how they happened and how they affected us, and what we needed to do to improve how we're going to manage this time through. Well, first of all, of course, we've got to ensure that we've got all the necessary self-protection, and that includes masks and gels, etc., so we can isolate ourselves if we do have to go out and mix in company, and that we're ready to stand by the proviso of keeping our social distancing away from other people. That's very important. The last time, the last twice actually, one of the first things that they done was closed all the bars. Well, looking at that from a personal aspect, it wasn't a real great problem for me, is it? Because we don't actually go out and frequent the bars too much. Only the bars that were serving food, and we may have visited them once in a while, not regularly for certain. So the closure of the bars didn't really affect ourselves as a family unit too badly, actually. But of course it affected the community badly, and it affected the bar owners and people that use them severely. So it was no light-hearted matter. Well, initially, after the bars closed, that left the restaurants as the only place where you could have a meal and get a drink at the same time. As you can see, I've just been joined by a friend of mine. Anyway, yeah, the restaurants were the only social venue that you could visit, and they were allowed to sell alcohol at first, but eventually they realised that this was a potential for contamination as well, so they banned the sales of alcohol in restaurants. Well, that didn't really affect me anyway, except that it was nice if I went to eat something in a restaurant that, excuse me a minute, that it was nice to have a beer along with my food. But that was removed, and I'm going to have to remove this parrot before I go on, excuse me. Very quickly, the parrot's gone, but very quickly after they stopped the alcohol sales of alcohol in the restaurants, very quickly after that, then they shut down the being able to eat in restaurants altogether. But they left the takeaway options, which was absolutely essential to continue, and that continued the way through. Now, actually, the closure of the restaurants wasn't really a big problem for us as a family unit, because we had been kind of self-independent and eating anyway. So it was nice to go out occasionally for a meal, but unfortunately that was removed, so we just had to accept that. Once again, though, it had immense effects on the community in that the waiting staff in the restaurants, the majority of them weren't required anymore, so they lost their jobs, and only the chefs and one or two helpers actually carried on, where the restaurants were successful in setting up a takeaway business. There was a couple of beneficial companies to this, actually. One of them was the Grab Takeaway, and another one or two delivery companies who all of a sudden found themselves pushed right to the top of the priority list for collecting meals from restaurants and delivering them out to people at home. They'd done very well out of it, I think. But that was just a side instance. All the other entertainment aspects actually started closing then. The massage parlours went, and that was no real problem for us as a family unit. But once again, it's a lot of people were employed as masseuse people, and these people actually didn't actually get paid anything. They didn't get wages. They actually got their income from having customers. So if there was no customers went for a massage, then they got no finance, and there was a big loss for them when the massage parlours closed. They suddenly got no income whatsoever. It's sad. Yeah, the significant closures of entertainment venues that affected us really was the closure of parks, because we like going around to the local park here of an evening where they do all the exercising, etc. My wife used to like doing her laps around the circuits there, and my daughter used to like going on the swings, etc. It was a very pleasant atmosphere in the evenings, but that was closed because it was a busy venue. Swimming pools were closed. Well, that didn't really affect us too much, a little bit, but not too much. But the other one that really did affect us was the closure of the beaches, because we like to go down to the beach, and they went completely off limits, and that was a sad affair. There's nothing we can do about that. I expect that's going to happen again, and it's a case of we have to accept that. In some areas, they actually stopped the sales of alcohol completely, and that's in the shops and the supermarkets, etc. They just put a blanket stop on all the sales, particularly down in Rayong and areas like that. And that could easily happen here, because this time is much more. It is more dangerous than it was last time, and the spread is hugely more exponential than it was last time. So alcohol sales might well be totally curtailed. On the very first wave that came through as part of the lockdown, we actually saw roadblocks going up across the city, actually separating the north of the city from the south of the city, and all the roads in and out had roadblocks on it as well. So that could well happen again. it's already a big problem in Thailand that a lot of the provinces have actually shut themselves in already, and they don't let people in from other provinces, and if they do come in, then they've got to go into quarantine. And that's how much more serious it is in this particular instance. Not a lot we can do about that, and there's not a lot we can prepare for that, but we just have to accept that. That was the roadblocks. Social mixing was totally stopped as much as possible. That's obvious. People don't want to mix. And that's going to be very much the case this time. I'm sure that social mixing will become something that's totally not wanted. And there is significant mental effects and social effects from isolation. Actually, we've seen it in the past, and we've read about it in Europe and the UK, etc. It can be quite serious, and it's up to us here as a family unit to try and devise something, particularly for my daughter, where she's not going to be badly affected by the isolation that we're probably going to have to go through, and that's going to result in games, activities at home, and interaction between my wife and me and my daughter to try and keep interest levels up, and to try and maybe nurse along the scholar side of it as well. So that's something we've got to do as well. We can take advantage of some of the facilities that were set up by the UK when they produced a lot of online education facilities, and we can maybe download some of them and use some of them here. We'll have a look at that anyway. That's one of the aspects of it. One of the big things we've seen in the last ones was the effect on the local people here in Thailand. It was absolutely disastrous on both waves, actually, the first and the second. A lot of starving people. There is no real social system for people that are non-government workers. The government did give out some financial assistance, as much as I think they could possibly afford, but they've done that twice now, and the big problem I am hearing now is that there is no money left in the coffers, but there's a desperate need for large amounts. Now they're talking. I had a figure a few days ago that if they put Bangkok into isolation for 2 weeks, that was going to cost 5 billion bahts. So what's it going to be if they put the total country into isolation for 2 months? Because it's not going to be over in 2 weeks, that's for certain. And 2 months may be more realistic, because by that time we might be able to see the vaccine program increased and maybe hurried along a bit, so we can take it. We can all get a chance at that. But that's up to the government, particularly for the Thai people. We've seen in the past a lot of businesses going bust. A lot of places have never reopened from the initial wave. There was even more went in the second wave, and I believe this third wave is going to be the most disastrous of the lot. We have seen Pattaya changing, and I can only talk about Pattaya. I see they've got big problems in Phuket and Hua Hin and the other areas. Chiang Mai at the moment is competing with Bangkok to see who's the highest number of contaminations each day, and it's very bad up there as well. So I can only talk about Pattaya and what I see in Pattaya, and Pattaya has changed a lot through this virus, actually, and I think it's brought out some more positive thinking by the local government on how they can improve the city. But at this moment of time, it's taking a horrific effect, and I don't think anybody really knows how to deal with this, actually. So the problem is for the local Thai people. And the first wave we saw a lot of charities set up, etc., and people donating money, etc. But that can't go on. That can't go on. They say in the first wave, if it hadn't been for the expats that stayed here, there would have been a lot more hunger around Pattaya anyway than there would have been if it wasn't for the expats. We had food banks set up everywhere, run by expats, financed by expats, and some GoFundMe pages. I can't see that happening again. It didn't happen in the intermediate phase, and I can't see it happening this time. People don't have the funds anymore. Everybody's depleted. It's taking its effect on everybody. So there's thousands and thousands going to be added to the unemployment list, and that's something that they've got to try and claim back from. So tourism and etc. is on hold for a very long time. So let's get back to what we as a family are going to do. Well, the first thing we've got to do actually is just hunker down. We've got to set ourselves up here at home, try and be as independent as possible, and not need to go out to do any mixing, etc., except for essential shopping. As one of the precautions, I have bought myself 2 cases of beer. I did that, and I missed out on the first one, and it wasn't really a problem then. And then the second one, when I saw what happened in Royong, in the first one where they totally closed the alcohol sales, I thought, right, I'll get one step ahead of it for the second closure here, and I bought 2 cases of beer, and they didn't do it again in Pattaya, so I just had them sitting in the fridge. But I think at this time there is every bit more chance that they will take some sort of action like that. And just in case, I bought myself a couple of cases of beer anyway. I don't drink a lot, not nearly as much as I used to do. The 2 cases I bought 3 months ago or something like that, there's still a few cans left in the fridge actually. So I don't drink every day, and if I drink a can or 2 cans, then that's fine. And if I run out, then it won't stress me out anyway. So, but I do have a little bit of protection there. We'll have to. The big thing we have to try and protect ourselves is mixing with other people. Already, I see fear in other people's eyes when they see somebody not wearing a mask or not wearing a mask properly. You can see them actually physically trying to avoid them, keep away from them. We were down at a birthday party last night at my wife's sister-in-law's shop down in Pattaya, and people were beginning. You could see people were really, really afraid of what was happening. There were people coming near were making sure their masks were on, etc. Because the thing with this virus is, and it being so hard to detect with the with it being so asymptomatic, so people are not actually showing the symptoms. It's very difficult to know who's got it and who hasn't got it. You can see, I can see in the UK and other countries, people thought, these are relations, they can't have it. We know they're being careful, etc. But there's hundreds of thousands dead because they took them steps. During the previous lockdowns, we actually saw a lot of the people in the village here. They would get together of an evening out, and we've got a village playfield down here, and they would go. A lot of the guys were going down there and having a kick around with a football at night, having a football match. And this was in the middle of a lockdown, and they weren't wearing masks or etc., and they weren't really taking any precautions. It's very difficult to do that if you're playing football, and that is something that for certain cannot happen this time. It's we have to be much more regimented in the way we deal with this lockdown, how we take care of ourselves. Shopping, that's the only essential thing that we need to do. And we have a plan at the moment. Fortunately, we have a nice big food market fairly close to us, actually. It's about 2 or 3 minutes on a motorbike to get down there. And we've got a plan that only my wife will actually go out and do the shopping. And myself and my daughter will remain here. And that way she can maximise her safety when she's out. We don't have to worry about my daughter doing her usual socialising aspects. And hopefully that will work to help stop us getting the problem also. On a personal level, I've taken out an insurance policy last week that kicks in next week against being infected by COVID. It didn't cost too much actually, it was fairly cheap. It cost me in UK money about £12, and it covers me up for 100,000 bahts, which is £2,500 for initial medical treatment should I catch the disease, and that's better than nothing. But what it does do is, if the disease then becomes much more serious and I go onto ventilators and at the worst case I expire, then there's a million bahts in this policy for that eventuality, and I think that my family would get that money should that happen. But hopefully it won't. I'll try to make sure it doesn't happen. My family members, actually, my daughter and my wife, they're covered by the local health regime. They can go to the Banglamore Hospital, etc., and be treated under the Thai expenses. So that's not so bad. And not only that, but they're considerably younger than me also. So hopefully that will help protect them more anyway. So that's about it, I think. That's about as much as we can do to protect ourselves here. Everybody, I wished I'd managed to get this out a couple of days ago, because people need to start thinking